Danny, thanks for doing this today. Today I'm not the chancellor.
Okay.
I'm putting on the hat of I used to be a leadership scholar.
So you're not my boss today?
No, I'm not your boss.
I can say
today,
whatever
so
I want.
You got an hour to just go for it, okay? And so I'm more like the leadership scholar. I'm interviewing people who are successful leaders, just peeling back the onion a little bit. How do you think about this? What makes you tick? All that kind of stuff. You ready?
Sure.
Okay, softball question right away. Who has influenced you most? What leader in your life, in your world, has been the biggest influence to you on the kind of leader you are?
There's probably a bunch.
Yep.
I've had the opportunity to play under a bunch of different coaches,
Okay.
and then coach under a head coach, and learned a lot from all of them.
Okay.
I'd say that, I mean, my pops is probably number one.
Okay.
Just seeing how he poured into his staff, his people, and developed people, and made decisions for the right reasons always.
Okay.
He's probably the biggest factor in how I lead. But you're not my boss today, so I can say this: you are a huge factor too. I see the way that you lead this campus, and it's awesome to be a part of it.
Thanks. And I learned from you too. So Mutual Admiration Society going there. All right, well, so let's talk a little bit. Like if you had asked me, I'd say my dad probably also. Did you describe how you got to watch him make decisions? Like, was this, you went down to the office with him? Like here, I see families here, coaches' kids and stuff. Did you grow up like that, going to work with him, or?
I did, but I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that my kids do either, which is probably good. But in retrospect, I kind of see how things were handled, and and have a much more of an appreciation for it. But just like you see in our athletic department here, that's how I grew up. I was on campus every single day, riding my bike around campus, breaking into gyms. Campus police hated me and my brothers because they'd have to kick us out, and then we'd break back in.
Okay, very normal boy behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about decision making. Like you said, I watched my dad make decisions. Your role involves lots of big decisions that are oftentimes complex and hard to think through. How do you go about making a big decision? Like, what's your process? I see you with numbers in your head a lot, but just how do you start and then get to a decision?
I think it starts with the groundwork before the decision.
Okay.
And what did we say we're going to be about?
Okay.
And I do a lot of talking with our leadership team. I don't like to make a decision on my own.
Right.
But I think being disciplined about what we said we're going to be about is really important. And we'll continue to make the right decisions for the right reasons. And what I've found is sometimes when you do that, you think it'll be an unpopular decision, but it ends up being a very popular decision because people see that you're being disciplined and you're being consistent.
There you go. You state a principle, and then you abide by it.
Yep.
So one of the things I watched you do when you first came here, it took about a year, I think, to get it done, but right away you jumped on a strategic plan. Mm-hmm. Why was that so important to get done right away? Does it have anything to do with what you were just talking about?
It does. I think it leads to decision making and getting everybody on the same page. Our student athletes, our coaches, our staff, everybody. Let's all agree on what we want to be and how we're going to get there. And it's not so clean that like every single thing can guide you with it, but it does give you a framework on how you kind of make decisions and how you move forward. And we use that strategic plan every single day.
I hear you refer to it, Rise Glorious. I love the title of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of in passing, but it seems like it reinforces your decisions. Whether people like them or not, they know they kind of came from that plan, or they were maybe prompted by it. Does that seem right?
Yeah, and everybody has ownership in it.
Yeah.
We had, I mentioned student athletes, coaches, and staff. We had donors involved. We had alumni involved. everybody had an opportunity to provide their voice, and so now we're executing the plan.
Yeah. So speaking of that, you sort of like me, but you're leading a team of leaders, I would say. You lead a bunch of leaders who are then turning around, and because it's a big, complex organization. So how do you think about that in your everyday business? Like, what do I want them to see? What do I want them to experience? And then what I want them to be, kind of thing.
It's interesting because we have head coaches that are phenomenal leaders, and they were making impacts on the lives of their players for the rest of everybody remembers the coach that they played for.
That's right.
But it's different because they're leading 18 to 22-year-old kids.
That's right.
And you and I lead
adults.
So it's a different space, and I got to understand that. And I'm a big believer in empowering people, as you do, and you empower me. You empower our entire cabinet. So we try to give as much autonomy as possible to our head coaches, and just think about how can we make them better coaches, and what kind of hurdles can we take away in terms of competitive success for them, and what kind of competitive advantages can we give to them, and revenue is a huge part of that, and so we spend a lot of time on that.
All right, so let's talk about that for a second, because when you first came here, you talked about, I want to make this the best athletic department in the country. And so I think most people would think, well, we got to be winning at everything. And winning is, I know, really important to you. Competition, I know, is one of your strengths.
Yes.
But there's more to it for you. You just mentioned revenues. Like, what makes a great athletic department?
Revenue is a part of it. It's become more obvious to people now in the NIL era, but it's always been the case. The schools with the biggest budgets and with the biggest operating budgets, the best facilities, have always won at the highest level. And when Tennessee was the best version of itself, and you've heard me talk about this in the 90s, we had a top 2 or 3, if not the number 1 budget in the SEC, and we had the best facilities. And we're in the process of fixing that and getting back to that place very quickly. And we expect to be competitively the best, and there's a really strong correlation.
Yeah. So how do you make the trade-off in your mind? Let's just talk about some of the big renovations that you've led, that you're leading, and you talk about it as not just for the athletes, but also for the fans. You talk frequently about the fan experience. So how do you decide, is it going to be north end zone of Neyland? Is it going to be Anderson Center? Like, how do you figure that out? Which one of those? It seems like right now it's all of the above, but I know there was a sequence here.
Yeah, and we inherited some things. So the Anderson Center project was kind of already, we hadn't broken ground, but we had committed to doing it as an institution. And there was $22 million of gifts already committed. The projects ended up being $48 million. And I just felt like we needed to deliver on that. So that project is about our student athletes and the day-to-day experience of our football players. It has nothing to do with the fan experience. Everything else we've done is about pouring into our fans. And we have a 102,000 seat stadium with 20,000 on the waiting list, and we do not want to take that for granted. We have a 22,000 seat arena with several on the waiting list. I don't know the number today, but it's sold out.
There,
yes, and so that's our lifeblood. Is in terms of our operating budget, we have to have sold out stadiums and maximize the value of this fan base.
So that all feeds back to competitive success, the things that are important in that space. Okay, I want to talk about culture a little bit. I interviewed Coach Vitello, and he said one of the things he just loves about this place is the collaboration, the way teams support each other, coaches, and he said, this is not normal. This doesn't happen other places. And he says it with great passion. And I remember in your first press conference, you talked about that, wanting to build a culture where athletes support one another. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why is that important? And from day one, you pegged that, and then just somehow it's happened.
Yeah, it's a part of why I wanted to be here. When you first called me, and I knew that this place had that in its history.
Yeah.
You know, we've had success in multiple sports.
Yeah.
We've won national championships in a bunch of Olympic sports, and obviously what Pat Summitt did, and I think it's the best way to build an athletic department, and for the best way, it's the best way for an athletic department to be an extension of the whole university.
Yeah.
We talk about having an everything school. One of the first things we did is open up the dining hall for breakfast and lunch for every single student athlete, not just football.
It was just football.
It was only football. And I want the Olympic rower, swimmer, volleyball player to interact with the football, the basketball players.
Yeah.
And I think that their competitive interests become contagious.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that. And we talk about that with the kids incoming and recruiting. We talk about that with their parents. It's a community of student athletes. And I think it's unrealistic to think that a student athlete can be completely embedded in the rest of the student body.
Yeah.
Because of their schedule
Right.
with competition.
Right.
So how do we recreate that community here? And I think it's been a big part of our success.
So is that something you've had to push with the coaches, or have they just sort of sensed it, felt it, and gone with it?
I think it's the
Natural.
latter. Yeah, I think they've felt it. I haven't made a big deal out of like asking them to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with football. You have to have a football coach that embraces it, and Josh does, because it's good for football too.
Yeah.
It's good for those kids.
Yeah.
Rather than them being on an island,
Right.
for them to be a part of a community of kids that are interested in the same things, competing in the classroom, competing in competition.
That's awesome. Well, I think the way you've gone about the culture, you even talked in your first interview about a little bit to the fans, like we want to be positive on social media.
Yes.
Can you reflect back on that? Did you have any idea that was going to, how that would fall with people? I thought it was awesome myself.
I didn't, and I've learned a lot about our fan base.
Yeah. Text your buddy. That was the.
Text your buddy. Yeah. I knew that there was a lot of negativity in social media.
Yeah.
And it had been not just more recent, but for several years there'd been a lot of negativity, and that's just not healthy for anyone.
That's right.
Particularly for the student athletes that are trying to lace up and compete. And so I was more speaking to that.
Yeah.
But I think we've come a long way with our fan base, and
yeah.
I love our fan base, particularly
I think they're the best in the country.
They're the best in the country by far, and they're so passionate. They care about being in everything school. They care about all of our sports.
Right.
They just get it. You know, this past weekend is a great example.
Yeah.
They immediately got what the hard decisions we had to make,
Right.
and why we made it, and they immediately got it. And I thought that was phenomenal.
Well, I did too, and I appreciate them every day. Here's a sort of in this same space, but I want to talk a little bit about change and leading change. That's one of the biggest, I think it's really all a leader really does, to be honest with you. There's two kinds of change that I see you leading in a way. One, inside this organization and university where you have control over things. And then I want to talk about the other change that's going on outside us that we have very little control over. So inside the athletic department, I'm sure there were people here who've been on staff for a long time, and in comes Danny White, and he's got ideas about this and that. How do you bring those people along? I mean, I need to learn this too. It's a part of what we do.
Right.
How do you think about it, rather than just say, I'm going to break everything, and then if you want to help me rebuild it, fine?
Yeah, it's what I've always said in my first AD job at Buffalo, and then at UCF, and now here. And I just kind of fell onto this. I don't have some like wonderful leadership tactic on how I came up with this, but I always said I will trust you until you give me a moment to not trust you.
Okay.
And so pour into our people, find a role for them.
Yep. For
some of them, with the new avenues we need to take.
Yeah.
We've grown our budget. We've 2x'd our budget in 4 years.
Yes,
so
yeah.
there's a lot that's changed.
Right.
And some people are in different roles than they were before. And some people self-select out. But I would rather not just vote everybody off the island at the beginning.
Right.
Because I think there's institutional knowledge. There's people that care about the place.
Right.
And we've had a lot of really successful examples of people that have been here for 20 years that have kind of reimagined who they are in this athletic department.
Yeah.
And they're a big part of our success.
Well, I think too about something I've heard you say is this place is rich in tradition. We want to preserve the best traditions,
Yeah.
but we want to build new traditions, or we want to modernize. So talk about that a little bit, because I think that's really directed towards our fans, and it seems like that's really worked. Like, can you think of ways what are some of the traditions here you didn't want to mess with? And then what are some things that you would say, okay, we sort of added that. I observed some things, but I'd like to hear what you think.
It's a funny, I'm thinking about a lot of staff conversations about, there's a lot of things we knew we couldn't mess with.
Right.
But it was more about, what's the new innovative stuff that we can do that we can get away with.
Right.
And our fans have embraced all of it.
Yeah.
Our game day atmosphere is way different than it was before. And I've gotten no kickback on that. It's awesome. I'll put our game day experience in football and basketball in particular, baseball, softball, up against anybody in the country.
Yeah.
And Alicia Longworth has been a huge part of that. But it's gone great. So on the tradition side, I think about game day experience.
You brought in a DJ, for goodness sakes.
We did, yeah, we did.
I wondered if you would take heat for that, but it's added so much.
Yeah, we did. And then also trying to harken back to the past with the Summit Blue. And
yes,
we're trying to bring everything together. And I think there's so many people that care about this place that all that seems to be working.
Yeah, I think it's great. So let's talk about the other change. Like, you've ended up, in my view, as a leader outside of UT, trying to do something about all this change that's happening so fast. Well, actually, not fast enough, you might say.
Not fast enough.
No, I know it. So, I mean, how on a daily basis, how do you do both? You lead here, and I see you can't stop yourself from trying to lead there.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit. That your dad didn't have to do that, did he?
No, it's challenging, and I see you struggling with the same thing.
Yeah.
Our job is to lead the University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
But we also have a national issue in college sports that's a real problem. I talk about like the Tennessee hat versus the college sports hat.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been probably wearing the Tennessee hat a lot more recently.
I've noticed.
Thinking about just what's our opportunity to be competitively excellent in this new world. But it's a real issue. We could go on and on about what we need, but I'll say it. We got a camera on us. I don't really care at this point. Collective bargaining is the only issue. It's the only solution.
It's the only way we're going to get there.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think when I step back and I hear the criticisms of us, by us I mean the industry, people saying, well, who's going to lead this? Why didn't the NCAA do this? Or why didn't presidents and chancellors step up and do X? And the frustration is we're not organized in a way.
Yeah.
We're sort of distributed all over the country, and so we need some leadership.
Yeah.
But I think you've done a great job of just staying true to your job right here. And when you can, I see you lead. People look to you, but it's not your day job. I agree with that.
It's not, and I don't know that it's really anybody's fault. Everybody's looking for someone to blame.
Right.
That the infrastructure was not set up, to your point,
Yeah.
to really guide a national agenda.
Yeah.
It's a conglomeration of hundreds of schools, and everybody's got day jobs, and it's really complicated.
Yeah.
It's a really complicated issue. The more I talk to people that are in pro sports, that are in private equity and all this stuff, it's an extremely complicated issue.
Yeah.
But
it is.
we have to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I agree. Well, when you have time, you can work on that. But in the meantime, all right, one last question I've got for you is, what kind of advice would you give to a young person? I know it's important to you to try to be a training ground for young future administrators, athletic directors. What advice would you give a young person that's thinking, maybe I could get in that business and maybe I could become like Danny White someday? Do you have any regrets? Is it a great career, a great life? What would you say?
It's a great career if you love being competitive.
Yeah.
If you like being a part of a team. If you don't like those things, then go do something different. I always tell people, think about your career goal at 22. I got great advice when I was in my early 20s. Think about what your career goal is, and then go ask people who've gotten to that place, what steps did they take to get there. And I have student athletes come in my office all the time, and we have this conversation.
Yeah.
For some of them, most of them, I tell them, you're too smart to work in college sports. You can go do something different.
Yeah.
But if you want to work in college sports or pro sports or anything in the sports arena, understand that you're going to have to move a lot. You're going to have to be willing to be disciplined about the plan. And if that means this job, then this job. Doesn't matter where it is. You got to take it. Doesn't matter what the salary is. You got to take it to move your way up the ladder. And but it's a really rewarding profession. And I love the student athletes, the coaches that I've gotten to know and will continue to get to know. It's special in so many ways. The human part of it's really special.
All right, I do have one more question for you.
Yeah.
A lot of people might not know that a big part of your job, or a part of your job, is you also serve on the Chancellor's Cabinet. And I've been at places where the athletic director, before here, but other places, didn't come and kind of snoozed or, worked on other stuff. You're a real member of that team. Why do you approach it that way? And how did you get grounded in that? Because I really appreciate it.
Is it okay if I snooze?
No.
No, I get excited about the success of our university and the role that athletics is playing in that.
Yeah.
The things that are happening to bolster the entire institution, I get really excited about. And I love the role that athletics is. It's a small role, but
it's important.
But we're a marketing spotlight, and I think that we're helping to drive some of that overall success. We're seeing applications at what is it, like 3x in the last 4 years?
Yes.
It's awesome to be a part of, and I think you heard me say in the retreat up in the mountains.
Where there was the flying squirrel.
Where I had the flying squirrel in my room. I was so excited about all the things that we could do, and none of it had anything to do with athletics.
Well, it makes a difference to everybody on that team, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.